What's your first early childhood memory?
My earliest childhood memories were actually living with my biological father. I'd obviously started with my mom, and there was a custody dispute, but I was so little I don't remember that. So it was living with my biological dad in Carson City, Nevada.
Before you were living with him, we know from court records there was a custody battle. Did you know anything about that custody hearing at all?
I didn't. I mean, I would occasionally pick up snippets of a kind of back and forth and what happened, but I was even so little when it was discussed. I didn't fully know.
Did the two of you ever talk about it later when he was old enough to understand?
We did. I let him know that I always fought for him, and always did.
The court testimony describes the May 1st, I believe, 1979, when Randy Fletcher came to take Nathan. What do you remember about that, Sherry?
I was in the backyard hanging up laundry, and Nathan was playing, and Nathan looked up and he said, "There's my dad." And I ran towards Nathan and I fell, and he grabbed Nathan and left. I called law enforcement. We found a rental car, but they were gone.
During the trial, Randy also testified about what happened. And I know your mother-in-law found a gun at the scene. And he testified that when he picked you up, Nathan, he picked you up on his right side, and because he had the glass eye, he couldn't control you, and he switched you over to the left side, at which time you were kicking and screaming and kicked the gun out from under his belt. And that's how it got there. To hear about that, to hear about him even having a gun and this happening, do you recall any of those things that happened that day?
No, I don't. I was so little. I don't remember. I can't. I mean, as a father now, I can't imagine, how terrifying it must have been for my mom. And I feel like in a lot of ways maybe I'm fortunate that I just don't remember.
Sherry, you did go to court and you did fight to get him back. What was that custody hearing like?
Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. Nathan's grandparents had a lot of influence in Carson City. I felt like things were really stacked against me, and but we did everything that I did everything that I could, everything I knew to do.
Why, in the end, did the judge give custody to Randy Fletcher?
This was a very abusive relationship, and I had to get Nathan out. And so when we separated, I was stalked, and everywhere I went, one time my car had no brakes in it. I couldn't live there anymore. And I took Nathan and I moved to Arkansas, where I had family. And so I think that what the judge ruled on was that I had left the jurisdiction.
You said it was an abusive relationship. So did Randy
He was physically, well, it was choking, it was spitting, it was pushing and shoving, and just horrible circumstances.
During the court hearing, you talked about being harassed with the nails in your tires and stuff, but the part about being abused didn't come up. Do you recall why your lawyer wouldn't have presented that to the judge?
It was a long time ago, and there were several things that didn't come up. So
You were really young at the time.
I was young.
You appealed and lost the appeal as well. So when you got that news, knowing what Randy Fletcher was like, what was going through your head?
I just knew I had to keep fighting. I knew, I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't know. I was devastated. And I was real concerned for Nathan.
Did you have visitation?
I did. I did.
How often was your visitation?
I had either Thanksgiving or Christmas and 6 weeks in the summer.
So Nathan, if we pick it up from your first early memory, you're living with your biological dad. How old are you?
So this was, so I guess that all transpired when I was around 3. And then I lived with him until right around the time I turned 8. So the period of time from 3 or 4 until about 8.
So what do you remember about him?
You know, the first couple of years were I guess, okay. And then it was, you know, it just became a kind of progressively worse environment, I guess.
In what way?
I mean, he wasn't a good person, and you know, it was an environment that you know, it just over time became a living hell. And the last year in particular I was there it was really bad.
Did he hit you as well?
Yeah, he was abusive physically, and you know, and mentally and verbally, and you know, it was something that I wouldn't, you know, want any child or any person to have to go through.
In the court testimony, there's testimony about him not being truthful, about lying about certain things, about being emotionally unstable. Did you see some of those things growing up?
You know, I did, and it's hard when you're a child because you don't understand what's going on, and you don't understand why any of this is happening. And you know, you'd see these wild swings from you know, very violent to very apologetic and back and forth, and it just you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense then. It doesn't make any more sense today, especially having, you know, my oldest is 5, which is you know, just sort of that time frame, and I don't understand. I mean, without question, that the lowest form of life on this planet is someone that would beat their wife or beat their child, and I don't understand it now, and I don't think I ever will.
And when you were going to school, was there anyone you could talk to?
You know, it was hard. I missed a lot of school. There was a lot of days I couldn't go. You know, I couldn't see other folks, and you know, again, you're a child, and I think initially you probably think some of it's your fault, and you're certainly led to believe that. And you know, you have these authority figures in life that have done these things, and you don't feel comfortable telling anyone. School was, you know, a place of refuge. I remember being asked one time my least favorite class, and I said math, and someone asked why, and I didn't have the heart to explain because it was the last class of the day, and I just didn't want to go home.
What did you tell your mom about what was happening?
Nothing.
He was afraid. He was afraid that things would be worse if he told. And I remember one time when he was there for a visit, he never wanted me to be in the room when he was undressed or see him without a shirt on. And I remember opening the door and just seeing all these bruises. And I was horrified. I was horrified. And he was just like, shut the door, you've got to get out. And I mean, that was the first time that I really, really knew that things had changed, and he just was more withdrawn and couldn't focus. And Nathan's always had amazing focus, and I just started seeing things.
How old was he when that happened?
It was shortly before he came back. It was probably 7, 8. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't long before he came back.
Got to be tough for 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and you didn't tell anyone?
No, but I made it through, and what saved me was an amazing mom, and I was reunited, and it was the best thing that ever happened, and then I had the most loving and stable environment from then until today, and in that way I was fortunate. I mean, a lot of kids had it worse, or they had it worse for longer periods of time, or they didn't have that out. And when I was finally reunited with my mom and my stepdad, I really have no complaints, with the rest of my life. And you figure out a way to make it through. And I'm a survivor and a fighter, and I'm just tremendously blessed to have an amazing mom.
Probably around 8 years old, 7 years old, kids start to sort of see themselves outside of their family, right? You realize you're a separate person. Were you thinking at that time, sort of, how am I going to get out of here? Or what am I going to do? Or how am I going to, kind of survive this? Did you think of those things in your head, like create scenarios?
Towards the end of the time with my biological dad, I did. I mean, I can remember thinking about, if I could run away, or how I could, go find someone, or go home with the teacher. I mean, I do remember, doing that. And then the holidays when I was with my mom, which you mentioned before, which was right before my biological dad ended up sending me back. That was definitely a time where I just said, hey, something has to change, and it did. It did one day. He just said, I'm sending you to live with your mom, and I said, I think that's great.
Would he come home angry or drunk? Is that why he would hit you?
I don't know. I don't know the reasons why. I was a child. I just think he had a lot of problems and a lot of troubles in life, and I don't know that I'll ever understand why.
So the day he said he's going to send you to live with your mom, you don't know why he made that decision?
I don't. They said, pack up your things, and I packed them up, and the next day I was on a plane, and my life's only been getting better ever since that day.
What was that like, that reunion? It was such a relief. It was such a relief, and it was just such an answer to prayer. I knew I had exhausted all of the systems through the court. I knew I'd done all of that, and so that was all I had left.
Do you remember when you saw your mom when you got off the plane?
Yeah, and I remember the whole flight, and it, there was still a difficult adjustment, and we never fully talked about all of it because it didn't matter. I was out. I had made it through, and life was good. Yeah.
When did you learn, Sherry, what had happened to him?
I knew some things were wrong, and so I set up an appointment with a therapist. Nathan didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to make him talk about it. So I set up an appointment with a child psychologist, and he went and talked to them, and based on what Nathan told them, they recommended no visitation. And so I believe the attorneys just flipped everything to where I had custody at that point. And so I didn't know everything until yesterday. He's never talked about everything that happened.
He told you yesterday?
Yeah.
I never wanted, I never I mean, I don't even want to talk about it right now. And I never did talk about it because I never saw myself as a victim. I think there's a lot of people that go through difficult things in life.
Yeah.
And that's just a part of life, and you deal with it and you work through it. And you overcome and you move forward. And I've really tried to work hard my whole life to do good and try and make a difference, and never, and I never want to be seen as a victim. I was very young and had an amazing mom and a lot of things that helped me along the way. But it's certainly not something I wanted to talk about.
So why now? Why? First of all, why yesterday? Why?
Yeah, I've done my best to try and protect my family and protect what little of privacy you can when you run for office. And like so many families out there, my life experience doesn't fit neatly in a 30-second soundbite. And through the course of the campaign, a lot of folks have tried to, I think, misrepresent or misconstrue parts of my childhood to suit some alternative motive in terms of the role of my biological dad and my stepdad. And so ultimately, I felt like, for the sake of clarifying the record, I needed to talk about it. I also want to, kind of protect my family. If we talk about it once, hopefully people will stop calling them and going to their house and doing these types of things. I don't know that it's terribly relevant to a mayoral election, but it's a part of who I am. And so I think under the environment of kind of being forced to clarify a lot of it, it just made sense to come out and talk about it once.
Have you ever spoken to your biological dad since that day when he sent you on the plane?
Once or twice when I was a child. He would call, and I talked to him on the phone a couple times, but I haven't seen him since that day.
Do you know where he is now?
I have no idea. Yeah, no idea. I also see now it's important in life that you don't carry bitterness or anger. I mean, life, sometimes you go through a tough patch or a difficult period and you get through it and you move on. But I really understand now as a father that the role you play biologically as a father is the smallest part. Because both of my boys are adopted. I'm not their biological father, but I couldn't possibly love them more. And it was where I've been fortunate in life to have good mentors and an amazing mother and folks that helped me.
What was your stepdad like, Danny Farley?
Yeah, he was a solid guy. He worked tremendously hard. He always told me about he graduated high school and started the next day at the International Paper Factory. And he carried a lunch pail, was a blue-collar guy. And he always told me and my brother, he said, you guys have got to go to college. You don't want to do what I do every day. And I remember how hard he worked every day. And he was a reserve law enforcement officer. And I think he did the best he could to really provide for us.
And how long were you married to Danny, Sherry?
19 years.
So I know we had a conversation a few days ago about whether you had talked to your stepdad. So tell me about that.
Well, after I left high school, I went to college. I would see him when I came back for the summers. And then when my mom and him divorced, we just kind of lost touch. And I hadn't talked to him since I was 20, 21. I mean, somewhere in my early 20s, I hadn't since whenever they were divorced. And you kind of lose touch and you grow apart. And I was always very close to my mom. But with everything going on, I called him last week, and it was the first time I talked to him in a long time. And it was good. It was a good conversation. And I was glad I called him, and I just told him I appreciated, even more so now as a father, how hard he worked. And he did work hard. I'll never forget him telling me when I was young that, if someone's paying you give them a full day's work. And I watched every day him get up early and go to work and come home tired and get up the next day. And I think he instilled that work ethic in me. But he also did, and my brother and I had opportunities to go to college, to graduate. to have a better life, but I wouldn't have had that if he hadn't done that. And I told him I appreciated it a lot, and that meant a lot to me, what he had done, and I hope to see him sometime soon.
Was he surprised to get that call?
I think so, a little bit. He said he follows the campaign of my life online, and he made fun of the little zombie commercial that came out a little bit, and he told me he was proud of me, and that meant a lot.
You mentioned the campaign and your life not fitting into a 30-second soundbite. On the campaign trail, and I think one of the reasons your life has been under scrutiny is you talk about, your working class parents, your mom and your dad. Why did you make the choice to talk about your dad, knowing this difficult, complicated past? Like, why?
Well, in my eyes, and I think there's a lot of people out there. When I say my dad, I'm talking about my stepdad. That's the only dad that I know. It's the dad who raised me. He took care of me. I called him dad, and so it was natural to say when I talk about my dad, who was a factory worker who became a cop. That is my stepdad, and I understand in a campaign people will look for any little thing that they can try and distort. Or take out of context or twist, but it's always been clear for me.
The college thing has come up as well, and I know we talked about that. You finished school in 2000, you went back in 05, not went back, but you finished your credits in 05. You got your degree. One of the things that came up in the custody battle is your biological dad's education. He went to college for 4 years, University of Oregon. He was short, I think it was like 11 or 9 hours, and wanted to get his degree. And did you know he had gone to college for 4 years?
No, I mean, I was so little. I don't remember it. I mean, coming up that much.
Is it an uncomfortable kind of comparison in this, going to college for 4 years, not being able to finish, wanting to go back and get that degree? Is that when you find out about that? I mean, is that
no more than we probably both have brown hair. I mean, I don't know. No, I don't think.
There was a lot in the testimony about sort of what he did for a living. He was a deputy sheriff as well for a while. He was fired, sort of went from job to job. Do you remember, I know hard work and that work ethic is a big part of what defined you according to people we've talked to and according to, what you've said in some of your speeches. What did you see early on? I mean, did he go from job to job? Was this?
Yeah, I remember him being a police officer. Deputy sheriff, and that was what I remember and what he did.
How do you think that early part has made you who you are?
I mean, I've thought about it more in the last week than I probably had in the preceding, close to 30 years. And I in so many ways, you learn to deal with adversity, and you learn to deal with difficulty, and you never stop fighting. I think it shaped me in that sense. I mean, if you can make it through that, you can make it through anything. But I also think it does instill a real empathy for particularly children and women. And folks who have been through difficult times through no fault of their own. They didn't do anything wrong. It's not their fault. They didn't make any bad decisions. And so I think in a lot of ways it helped lead me to where I am now. When you're a Marine, you go out and fight to protect people. And you put your life on the line to protect others, to give them peace and security. Running for the legislature is the same. You're working to try and help folks who have maybe been through a difficult patch in life, who just want to have a little bit better opportunity. And it's certainly, I think, what makes us who we are. I know my mom's been a role model my entire life. I mean, she's dedicated her professional life to helping women and helping children. And I think, that definitely shapes you.
How do you think it changed him or didn't change him or made him who he is?
I think that I tell all of my kids that you're called and chosen, and you're special, and there's a purpose under heaven in your life. And I mean, we're overcomers, and being a victim doesn't define us. It's overcoming, it's helping other people. And I hope that laws have changed for children to where reporting is mandatory for school teachers and people. And I know Nathan's going to fight. I know he's going to fight for kids and for women and, people with problems. And so I'm very, very proud of him. I'm proud of what he's doing. Nathan could do anything he wants to. And so the fact that, he's chosen this means a lot to me.
I also think, in some of my reluctance to talk about it, which I obviously had to overcome, maybe there's an opportunity that there's some child out there watching who's been through some rough patches, and a lot of them even a lot worse than what I went through, and yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You gotta have some close family or support structure, but you can continue to push ahead, and you can have, you can't, one area of your life doesn't have to define the rest of it. And you can get through it.
Sherry, you work with battered women now, is that?
Actually, I work in child abuse right now. I have worked with battered women in the past. I worked as victim witness coordinator for the prosecutor's office and worked at battered women's centers. And so right now I'm working in child abuse.
And how did what you went through influence what you eventually did with your life?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge. I just wanted to be part of the solution and, help people find a way out.
When you got that call from Nathan and when you had that conversation yesterday, how was that for you?
It was real emotional. It was real emotional, but I think this is a good thing. I think we're going to heal, and I think we're going to move on.
There's also a part, with what I know now. I mean, it wasn't my mom's fault that she lost custody. She was young and doing the best she could, and I never wanted her to feel bad for what happened. Even when I was little, it wasn't, it wasn't her fault. Sometimes in life things just happen, and I've just always been really, really reluctant to talk about it. But a part of it was just not wanting, her to feel guilty or bad, because it wasn't her fault. And I've never met a more amazing or powerful or impactful person than my mom. And and then I had some frustration as it continued to come up and percolate in the campaign. And I just, I remember telling my wife, I said, my mom's not running for mayor. She's not running for mayor. I said, if she were, I'd vote for her. I think there'd probably be a lot of other people that would as well. But I think a desire to just, address it, talk about it, and then let's move on, and let's get back to the issues at hand, and the reasons that people are going to weigh their selection of the next mayor.
What's your relationship like now?
That's great.
It's always been close.
Yeah.
And what's your life like now, Sherry?
Oh, my life is great. My life is, I love what I do. I love my job. I have an amazing husband and daughter, and I love where I live. It's great.
So, just so I have a little bit of chronology. Sorry, go ahead.
I have amazing grandkids. I didn't mention that.
Mine were first. I tell my brother, mine were first.
So, you have Nathan. I know you had a second son,
Jonathan.
Yeah.
and that's with Jenny Farley.
Right,
So,
right.
and then you have a daughter.
I have a daughter.
Yeah.
She is 17, and we adopted her. I was married to her biological grandfather, who's passed away, and we adopted her.
When this started coming up when Nathan was running for mayor. What were you surprised that this was going to surface, this part of your life and his life?
I was. I know nothing about politics. I don't pretend to understand it, especially this polarized politics that's going on now. And I'm amazed that these things keep coming up.
Part of it too is just, my stepdad's been getting all of these calls, and my mom's been getting all of these calls, and they're not running. They're not candidates, and I chose this. I chose to run, and so I'm fair game and can be subject to scrutiny and questioning and all that type of stuff. But there's a hope, and then in talking about it once, folks can hear the story and then move on, and let's leave my family alone.
Is there anything else you want to share about your background or?
What else? I think that's it. Hold on, I made a note. No, I don't think so. I think we covered it all. Just the only point is I feel like in a lot of ways we grew up together. My mom was a teenager when she had me, and we went through a lot together, and I can't say enough about having a strong, steady, loving figure in your life, and that's made all the difference for me. And I couldn't be prouder of my mom. She has one son who served in the Marines and in the legislature, and has a reasonable shot at being the next mayor of San Diego. Another son who went to the Naval Academy and is a fighter pilot in the Navy, and Brittany, who we're proud of, and she did it all through some difficult environments. And at any point, it would have been easy to kind of check out and give up, but she never gave up on me, and it made all the difference.
How do you feel when you hear all of these things?
Oh, I'm very blessed. I really am.
Did Nathan ask you to do the interview? Did you, or when that came up, to sort of talk about this publicly, what went through your mind?
There was some talk back and forth, but I just couldn't imagine him doing this by himself. He didn't deserve any of this. He did nothing to deserve any of this. And I just can't imagine him talking about this without me here.
Anything else? Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate this. Thank you.